Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Crossing the Line. Today we've got a few stories to look at. It's been a bit of a hectic week in the news, and it's basically the same as usual. Here in Australia, we're going to get off the first story here with a social media a link to the stabbing murders of two Melbourne boys. Now, if you weren't aware, a few days ago, making this probably about a week ago now, two young boys in Melbourne, Victoria, which is in the southern socialist dictatorship state in Australia, were cut down by a bunch of youths with machetes, knives, and all the likes. These two boys just got home, got out of their car, and they were set upon by this gang, and they were brutally murdered in the streets, running for their lives, and they were just 12 years of age and 15. Now, Melbourne is known for its knife crime at the moment. It is known for its totalitarian dictatorship, it being the most locked down city in the world during COVID. And yeah, things haven't really changed. They haven't got any better. They keep voting themselves into this. So I'm having a hard time feeling sorry for, anyone in Melbourne. I do feel sorry for these young boys and their families. Is obviously absolutely devastating. And it seems that this was orchestrated by a gang of boys that seem to obviously have something against these two young boys. It might have even been a mistaken identity. But this is emanating from the immigration problem we have here in Australia, especially in Melbourne, and people not conforming to the Australian way of life. I don't know about you, but Aussies aren't really known for their knife-wielding machete skills and hacking up people in the streets. That's more of a Somali kind of thing. And we have that issue in here in Australia. I mean, they've just spent like some ungodly amount of money on machete disposal bins in Victoria. And it doesn't seem to be working because people are still getting hacked up in the street. And sorry if it sounds a bit rude or crass, but, there's no tiptoeing around it. These kids were set upon by a gang of disgusting people that were obviously taught these behaviours by their parents or, at least, given the ideology that these things are okay. Maybe it's because that where they came from, they brought that kind of ideology with them. That seems to be, the thing to do in Africa and those parts of the world, that if you come to another country, you bring your horrible ideology with you and you emanate it and you spread it around your local area. You mean these people are supposed to be fleeing these war-torn countries and seeking a better life here in Australia, and they seem to bring all their baggage with them. Now we're going to get into the story from news.com.au. Social media dissed link to stabbing murders of two Melbourne boys. Police say they're investigating a number of avenues as they hunt the killers of young boys Dow and Chol. I'm not going to try to pronounce their last names. I'll just do it a disservice. The Snapchat sticker may have been behind the stabbing deaths of two boys here in Melbourne, out of west, that has laid bare the city's youth crime crisis. Dow 15, Chol 12, were ambushed walking home from a basketball in Cobblebank on Saturday night by a gang of members armed with machetes. Police have said it appeared the brutal murders were targeted, but had to be stressed that the victims were not known members of gangs themselves. There's been an outpouring of grief among the boys' friends and loved ones who have called for the end of the senseless violence gripping Melbourne suburbs. Social media posts have been tagged with hashtag LLD and hashtag LLC, standing for long live Dow and long live Chol, respectively. And a petition calling for action on youth crime has been launched. Chat sites frequented by the people with knowledge of Melbourne's youth gangs have also seen claims emerge that they could have fueled Dow and Chol's deaths. It has been alleged that Snapchat sticker appearing to mock or diss another teenager who was fatally stabbed in the same part of the city last year may have played a role. News.com.au does not suggest either Dow or Chol were involved in that incident, and members of the online group have repeatedly referred to them as civs or civilians. There have been suggestions of boys set up before they were attacked on the Marble Drive around about 8 p.m. Victoria Police said in a statement, Homicide Squad detectives were following up on a number of avenues of inquiry. We continue to urge anyone with information about the incident those involved to come forward. It was revealed 12-year-old Chol was waiting for his mother to pick him up when he was chased and attacked and killed by 3 armed assailants. Dow died a few hundred metres away, allegedly at the hands of other members of the gang. A mother's grief. Chol's mum, Ariane Lowell, spoke publicly for the first time on Monday night in comments published in the fundraiser set up for his funeral. Chol was an intelligent and warm-hearted child who could light up the room with his smile and loving nature, she wrote. We remember him now, where he cared for those around him, especially his respect for the elders in his life. His sudden loss at the age of 12 has left us numb at the hole that we all know will never be filled, because Chol was truly a special person and so much life ahead of him. He was 12 years old. His friend was 15, and they were hacked to death by machete and knife-wielding thugs in Melbourne. Melbourne is a police state. It is run by a dictatorship, and it has been for some time now. These people in Victoria seem to enjoy it because they keep voting for it. They import the third world to the state, and then they carry on with their third world activities. Now, these kids were enjoying a night playing basketball, whether something occurred there at the basketball, and it's followed on here, I don't know. Obviously, the police are still investigating the matter. This is obviously not the first incident like this, and it will not be the last. Putting $300,000 machete deposit bins in front of police stations in Melbourne and Victoria aren't going to fix the problem. That is a fake gesture. That is just a way for the government to waste money, where they should be convicting people who are criminals and putting them away for a very long time. There is a massive epidemic of youth crime crisis here in Australia. It's happening in my state of Queensland. It's happening in just about every other state across the country. And it's not just immigrants coming to this country. It is people who have been here a while. Like, these were second generation immigrants to this country. And I've got to say that it seems to be, some sort of racial bias where the crime is being committed by a lot of immigrants. It is happening here with natural-born Australians, obviously, but it's story after story and case after case where it is something to do with immigration. And the government seems to just ignore that fact because it's a hard pill for them to swallow, because they've built their entire regime here in Australia on multiculturalism. The lie that was sold to the public and has been swallowed by the Victorians and a lot of other people around the country. But Victoria is definitely the worst for it. They will say in the same breath that, immigration's a good thing, mass immigration's a good thing, we have all this room, but why isn't the government doing anything about our housing crisis and youth crime? In the same breath, they will do that. They will also whinge about people, not paying enough tax, and then whinge that they're paying too much tax and the cost of living's going up. It's a double-edged sword, pardon the pun, but the government is not going to help you here. We are not allowed to defend ourselves in Australia. We are allowed to own firearms. For you Americans that think we aren't, we are definitely allowed to own firearms. I have several firearms. They're always locked away in a safe, with the bolts kept separate, the ammunition kept separate, the keys are hidden, and the safe has to be bolted down to the concrete or weigh a certain amount in some states. Each state has a different gun law, but we are not allowed to carry them. We are allowed to use them for the purpose that is intended, whether it's hunting or target shooting or something along the likes. We are not allowed to use firearms for self-defense. We're not allowed to use pepper spray, tasers, or anything like that for self-defense. We have this kind of very vague ruling that we're allowed to defend ourselves with appropriate force. So say it's not necessarily equal force, it's equal to appropriate force. So if some 3 armed intruders break into your house with a baseball bat and you have a baseball bat to defend yourself, that would pretty much deem legal to do so, to the point where, if one of them was on the ground and unarmed and you hit them an extra time to make sure they didn't get up or something along those lines, and they made a complaint if they were left alive to do so, you could very well spend time in prison for defending yourself and defending your home. It's happened before. It's going to happen again. There was an incident with a samurai sword not too long ago, where a couple defended their home with a samurai sword and one intruder died. I believe that person is now sitting in jail. And yeah, it's pretty, disparaging. It's pretty upsetting that we can't even protect ourselves and protect our loved ones. I kind of, protecting your property, obviously you should be allowed to do that. It's a God-given right, whether you believe in God or not. It's, an essential right to human life is being able to protect yourself. You can't just stand there and, be stabbed, murdered, or shot and killed and all that kind of thing, or, raped and all those horrible things that people do. You shouldn't just be able to have to stand there and take it because you're worried about the law coming after you as a victim instead of going after the actual perpetrators. But here in Australia, we have been neutered. We have been it's not so much disarmed. We have more guns now in Australia than ever before. And, we don't have a gun violence issue. We don't have a gun violence problem. We do have, nut jobs. At the moment, there is a certain nut job running around the bush hiding from police called Desi Freeman, who thinks he's a sovereign citizen, probably believes the earth is flat. And, whether he was pushed to that by the government and the police, it seems to be probably that way. But he did shoot and kill 2 police officers and injure more. And he's still on the run at this point. And, those kind of people are a worry. Those kind of people do pop up in polite society, no matter where you are. They happen in the United States all the time. It happens in Australia. It even happens in places like Sweden. And, there's not much you can do about people who are going to go insane, or just fall off the deep end. But disarming the entire population of a country because a few outliers is absolutely absurd. And that's something that I'll never forgive the previous generation for, is, letting the government disarm us so badly. I mean, we do have, it's not even disarming us really. Well, we do have firearms. We do have, you can get licenses for semi-automatic firearms. I mean, pistols is a separate license. We have like AB class, which is like simple bolt action rifles, lever action rifles, things like that. Handguns is an absolute pain in the ass to get a handgun in Australia. You can do it. It's a lot of it's time consuming to get licenses and monetarily consuming. It costs a lot of money to get a firearm license and to buy firearm and ammunition in Australia, but we are still currently allowed to do so. They are clamping down on those firearm laws more and more every day, but there is a good conversation going on at the moment about like cases like this and about break and enters across the country where, we should be allowed to protect ourselves. We should be allowed to protect our loved ones and property. And do I ever think that the Australian people will, have the taste for self-defense and, deterring criminals, things like that? Highly doubt it, because, the most of the population of Australia lives in inner city places like Melbourne, which is actually, one of the most unsafe places. For the rest of the country, it's quite rural. We do need firearms for pest control and things like that in a lot of rural places, farmers and, people working with livestock like that, and they do need them. And trying to convince the soy latte drinking yuppies that live in inner city Melbourne that they should be allowed to open carry and defend themselves if need be. It's not going to happen. I don't see it happening in my lifetime unless we have some sort of drastic change. One of the best at Collingwood All-Stars All-Stars Basketball Club shared a tribute to Dow on Monday night, saying the 15-year-old was taken far too soon. Thank you to everyone who came to Collingwood to show their support tonight, the club posted on Facebook. We are thinking of everyone who's part of Dow's life. Coach Carl Morrell told the ABC that Dow was one of the best players in the state age group and dreamt of playing in the US. Mr. Morrell said Dow made a 4-hour-long trip twice per week from his home in Melton, inner city Collingwood, for training. I hope that that paints a picture of his dedication to the teammates, he said. Dow's father told media on Sunday that his son was a basketball player, not a criminal. Victorian Premier Jacinta Allen addressed the shocking act of violence at a press conference on Tuesday after meeting with the community leaders on Monday. Now, this is the person to blame. Jacinta Allen, she has castrated the state, castrated the police in that state to stop them from going after actual criminals, where they spend their time going after people who disagree with her, people who disagree with what the government propaganda is. They spend more time, money, and effort on people who say, naughty things on the internet than they do people who are hacking children to death in the streets. They spend more time and money on attacking people who have a differing opinion than they have spent time, energy, money on people who are murdering other people in that state. Victoria is a socialist dictatorship. It has been for a while. Since COVID started, it just ramped up. Dan Andrews, the ex-sitting Premier of Victoria, was well known and has just popped up in the news recently. Go and check out my last video on him from last week, where he was spotted at a supervillain summit in Tiananmen Square. I don't know if you remember what Tiananmen Square is famous for, but he was spotted there with Kim Jong-un, Xi Jinping, dictator from Iran, I forget his name, sorry, and Vladimir Putin. So, just rubbing shoulders with the most evil people in the country, and a simple premier from Melbourne is there whining and dining with them. Make that make sense to me. I don't know. There is absolutely more that needs to be done, she said. Yes, there is. You are the person. You are the one whose shoulders it fall upon to do something. Don't blame anyone else other than the people who committed the acts and your weak pussyfooting around of actual violent crime. In some parts of our community, there is an ongoing pattern of behaviour, and we have toughened bail laws to deal with the repeat serious offending. It is absolutely clear we do not need more, and that is why I spent yesterday supporting communities who were grieving and listening to about what they think needs to happen next time in terms of the work and the action. Miss Allen said that the state machete ban, which came into effect last month, is making an impact. It's not making an impact. You can ban whatever you want to ban. It doesn't mean criminals are just going to hand them in. Banning machetes is like banning sticks. It's not going to work. People can get a machete, people can get a knife. It doesn't even need to be a sharp implement. You can hurt someone with your bare hands. It isn't the problem. Machetes aren't the problem. The people wielding them and the criminals wielding them are. They should be locked up. They should have been put in prison a long time ago for previous acts of violence and things like that. But they are let go because the police aren't allowed to, follow up on things that, end up causing issues like this. They have to be running around chasing Facebook criminals who said that they're going to a protest. Remember when they were dragging pregnant women out of their homes in their pajamas during COVID because they said that they wanted to attend a march for, against the mandates. And dragging pregnant women out of their house early in the morning because they said they wanted to go to a protest, which was completely legal. Victoria Police Commissioner Mike Bush said his back comments made by Senior Officer Inspector Graham Banks on Sunday that penalties for young offenders aren't in balance with what community expectations are or mine. An internal memo, Commissioner Bush said that these comments represented what many of us think. They are penalties which are being handed down in our courts to the worst youth offenders. There must be consequences for those who commit these crimes which drive fear in our community, but the home invasion and armed robbery or carjacking, he said, while Victoria Police will always respect the independence of the courts, I understand the frustration of the members. These kids would have been picked up before. Police will know these individuals when they find them. They will have a criminal history. They will have been let go by the court system before, and slaps on the wrists obviously haven't done it. They needed to be remanded into custody. They needed to be put in prison for murder for this case, and any time that they're caught shoplifting, fighting, attacking people, whatever it is, throwing rocks at cars from freeways, stealing cars, they get a slap on the wrist and they get let go, and it turns into this. This is what weak government and policing turns into. They go and attack people for wanting to wave flags. They want to attack people for, posting something on Facebook, but they won't go and attack the real criminals. They're too busy fining people for speeding fines, sitting in dark alleyways, hiding their speed camera from people, so they can't even, it's not even for safety at that point. They're just revenue raising. They attack every, minor crime like they attacked speeding fines and things like that, or, had massive big raids on criminal gangs, and they actually did it like they used to do with the bikies and things like that, you'd be able to nip that kind of shit in the bud, but they don't. They let it run rampant till it turns into something like this, and then they backpedal and say that the government's doing the wrong thing, it's not the police, and then the government says, oh, it's the police doing the wrong thing, it's not us, and then they just keep an endless circle going, and then they blame it on something else. And then anytime anyone mentions the color of their skin or where these people might have immigrated from, they're just labeled as a racist. And then the police will go and investigate that person who said that thing that could be deemed possibly racist. Pointing out statistical facts is not racist. It's got to the point where children are getting hacked up in the streets in, what people say is the most beautiful, epic city in Australia, or sometimes the world. They think Melbourne's one of the best cities in the world. People aren't getting hacked up in the streets in my city. I don't live in a big city or anything. I live in a small rural town. But that's not happening here. It's probably happened before. Probably end up happening again. But, that's not happening here. Do your job. You're the sitting premier, and you're coming out after the fact saying that this is shocking act of violence. Yeah, it's not shocking. It happens every day down there. There's drive-by shootings. There's a massive amount of organised crime for illegal tobacco because they've jacked the prices of tobacco up so high in Australia that no one can afford it. So an explosion of illegal tobacco. I think you get in more trouble for growing tobacco than you have for making meth or something in Australia. It's insanity. And the Victorian, government has just signed a deal with the Aboriginal leaders of that area, saying that they've formed a treaty, and so maybe they're just going to start blaming it on the Aboriginals because they're like, oh well, we're not in charge anymore. I'm pretty sure we had a referendum and we all voted no, that they spent nearly $500 million on, and we all voted no, and they're just doing it anyway, which. You go and watch my previous videos from, however long ago now, 12 months ago. I was telling you they would. And, yep, they have. And this is going to happen again. This is going to happen again soon. And Victorian people are going to keep voting for the same morons that they've got in government. What do you guys think anyway? Let me know down in the comments below. Don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Comment down below. And I'll see you guys in the next video.